Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to give you 3 simple steps to help your students combat that breathiness in their sound. But before I get into that, guys, make sure you go and subscribe to my channel. If these students are teenage years or younger, having a little bit of breathiness in the sound is a very normal part of vocal development. But you can guide them along the path to a clearer sound. That's not something that isn't possible just because they're young. I just want you to keep in mind it might not be resolved in one simple lesson or with one little trick. So where I would have them start is humming. It's a pressure issue that you're dealing with. You're not necessarily dealing with vowel or resonance, although that comes later. You're trying to help guide them toward a certain feeling of pressure balance. If you have them start on an M or a hum, and just do 3 notes, if they are breathy and used to singing that way, you're going to hear where they lose their breath very quickly. It kind of puffs out through their nose, and that's something you can make them aware of. And sometimes being aware of it is half the battle. So a trick I like to use is to have them put their finger under their nose. I like to tell them to try not to blow air on their finger as they hum. It's a futile effort because they are going to feel air on their finger, otherwise they wouldn't be able to do the exercise. I want that to be the goal so that they start to reduce the amount of air as much as possible. It gives them a sense of sucking the air in instead of expelling it out, which is a metaphor I like to use a lot. Suck the sound rather than expel the sound. So if we start somewhere like on a middle C, they're going to feel a lot of breath on the finger doing it that way. So just say try and reduce the amount of air you feel on your finger. And you're naturally going to get a little bit more clear of a tone from them. And that's good news. So on a hum, I don't take that very high. I'll have them do this 3-note exercise, probably up to about a G, to an A, to a B. And I don't go much higher than about a C5. Otherwise, things start to feel really trapped, and then they start to press, and that's not the point of the exercise. It makes it difficult to actually focus on what the exercise is for, which is to regulate the breath pressure. So I'll have them monitor a little bit. And then you can look at other things. Is their throat more open? Are they keeping it open in the back, or are they swallowing? Is it too bright? Is it too... If they've thrown it in their nose, I want you to let them imagine that they've got a yawn situation going on back there. So have them fake a yawn with their mouth shut. And 100% of the time, they're actually going to yawn, which is a really great thing. Just say the word yawn, and those young kids will yawn for you. So you'll have to open up the back and then start to hum with that openness maintained. And yes, you can count on them going back to old habits and just keep reminding them, try and reduce that breath on your finger. Make sure you have that openness in the back really tall, really long, and it'll help them maintain that clear tone that they find. Now, if you find at least 1 or 2% improvement using this exercise, that is good. That is progress. I wouldn't expect it to be completely fixed in one lesson, and that's totally fine, depending on, obviously, their vocal age and development. But be really patient through this. Just kind of guide them toward a tone that's a little more clear so they get used to the sensation. After that, I like to do the exact same thing, but this time on a me, so that they get used to that connection, and then it's translated into a vowel that is also more occluded than the other ones. What I mean by that is an E, the tongue is really high and really forward, so the amount of space in the mouth is very small. On an ah, we get a little bit more space between the top of the mouth and the tongue. So an E is going to make that really small space, which gives a little more control over the pressure. So we'll do the same thing starting on an E, and I'll have them do me. So hold it for an extra second. And guaranteed it's going to start right, and then as they move notes, they're going to get H's in between. So and all of a sudden they start to leak air, like someone just put a hole in their tire and suddenly it's leaking air and you lose all control. So just remind them of that to keep that feeling of suction back into the body instead of expelling outward. So we get if they're still getting the H's in between every single note, I want you to think about, have them just do it very smeared so that it's like this. So they get used to not changing pressure as they change pitches. You really want it to be very connected. So we do the same thing all the way up the scale. Again, set the pressure first. You'll have to guide them through this. Again, keeping that tall throat in the back. As they go up, they're going to want to raise their larynx. Just have them monitor it with the back of their knuckles and make sure it stays pretty much quiet down there. I like to use the word quiet because there will be some changes, but they should be very minimal. So you don't want a lot of rising me, and then I wouldn't go much higher than about a G. Otherwise it gets a little tight, and then on an E, and then you have to modify, and that's not what we're going into. That's not the focus of the exercise in this. The other thing I like to do is to have them do a G sound in whatever song they're singing, and I'll take it down into sort of middle voice just so they get used to the feeling without having to monitor the upper range and deal with all of that. So we stay in the middle voice, and let's say it's Amazing Grace. So I'll have them do ga 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 ga. So they're getting that sensation of closure in the glottis and the vocal folds coming together and then vibrating into that, rather than ha 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 ha, where breath is just escaping like crazy. So then we'll go up maybe a whole step. Ga 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 ga. You really get that sensation of closure, and that is optimal. It just guides them toward that sensation so they discover it on their own, and then they can monitor it when you're not around. Next to the ga, I like to do nya, and a lot of voice teachers do this one. That's because it helps. It really is very effective. So get that and then you open to the e, and then you go to an a. So you're still keeping minimal space in the mouth. You don't want to open to an ah too quickly, otherwise air starts to escape like crazy in these early stages of vocal development. So let's start at a nya nya, and I'm not doing nya nya, I'm not putting it in my nose. So if they do that, have them monitor it and plug their nose so that they don't go into it. So we get nya 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 instead of nya 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 nya. We're not going for that. Nya 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 nya. And if they're going nya 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 nya, and they're kind of flopping in and out of the other, you can guide them with the N. Maybe even have them stay on an N for a second. So they get used to that feeling of suction, that feeling of suspension in the breath. Here's my last tip. It's a bonus tip, so I'm glad you stayed around because it's my favorite to use and the little kids love it. So I love to do the witchy sound, and I'll have them do a witch cackle, like the little kids feel silly and they'll get wiggly, and then if you do it with them, they'll do it. So don't hesitate, but I'll just have them go and they'll do it with me, and then I have them sing that way so that we get ha 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 ha. The tone's a little cleaner. It's easier for them to manipulate, and it's easier for them to sing with a tone like that. They will all say that when you say to them, how does that feel? How is that different? Tell me what your feedback is. And they'll say, well, it just felt easier. It just felt easier to sing. It felt like I was louder and I didn't have to work so hard. That's exactly what you want. That's all, my friends. Thank you for joining me today. If you want to keep seeing videos like this, please make sure you subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Good luck.